Hello everyone and welcome back to some more Marvel Crisis Protocol for the channel. In today's 17 threat match, the Midnight Suns are going up against Criminal Syndicate, and this match exists mostly to see a brawl to the end between Immortal Hulk and Abomination, but obviously both sides playing to win. And this video will be available first to channel members as a thank you for the extra support they are willing and able to show, along with certain other video series and some other perks, and it is greatly appreciated, so thank you especially to them. And with that said, let's go look at both sides. So here's our 17th threat of Midnight Suns, having to be led by Blade, at least until Elsa Bloodstone is out, I think. And then we have an alternative option for a leader with his Bump in the Night affiliation bonus, joined by Black Panther, Chosen of Bast, second time he's on the channel, Moon Knight just because he's a staple in Midnight Sun lists and he's fun with his multiple personalities, and the big hitter of the 7th threat himself, Immortal Hulk, who isn't really immortal, but he certainly can feel like it sometimes. But there's enough heavy hitters on the other side that I think it'll be in question this time. And their tactics cards, if we just pan down ever so slightly: Siege of Darkness, Bats the Ghost Hound, Gamma Drain Reversal, and One Below All. And here is the 17th threat of Criminal Syndicate, also 4 miniatures in this side as well, and it's Team Big Base. They're almost all on the Hulk size base, only Omega Red isn't. Being led by the Scientist Supreme version of MODOK with his Criminal Syndicate affiliation bonus, I think it is just called AIM. We have Abomination, they have a tactics card where they can work together. We have the Wrecking Crew that shipped with Abomination, plus they're just like petty criminals in general. And Omega Red, just because he likes poison. Abomination likes poison, so we have two that like kind of giving out the stats. And Abomination has a tactics card that also does better if he's hitting poison targets. And if we just come down here to see their tactics cards: No Mercy, Stronger Together, You Will Do As I Say, Monster, Mystic Menace, and Gamma Burst. And here are the two crisis cards being played. It is Infinity Formulas and Cubes. Both are 17 threat, so it doesn't really matter which one the primary one is. And they're almost all in the same pattern, but not quite. There's no overlap. And there's 9 points available in total, but with both sides only having 4 miniatures, it's not super likely that's going to happen. It's not literally impossible, because you can hold multiple cubes, but it's not super likely. And of course the cubes hurt you and give you extra power if you're holding them, and if you're contesting a Infinity Formula you get extra power as well. So there's going to be a lot of power on the go. And if we just pan backwards here, we can see the Infinity Formulas are in blue, so there's 4 of them for securing, and then for the 5 cube fragments, 1 next to each of the Infinity Formulas and 1 smack dab in the middle of the table. With that said, we'll get both sides deployed and be back after this quick word from my channel sponsor. This video is sponsored by Noble Knight Games. Check out the video description below for an affiliate link that will take you through to their store, and it will help me out as well. Thanks. And with that said, we're back and good to go. The Midnight Suns are deployed to the left of your side and will be taking first activation in round 1. Criminal Syndicate to your right. We have Immortal Hulk down here. Blade is kind of obscured by him. Then we have Black Panther and Moon Knight up there. And then on the right we have the Wrecking Crew down next to MODOK, and then we have Abomination, and top right corner we have Omega Red. And with that, let's jump into round 1 and see how this monster mash plays out. The game got started with Moon Knight activating for the Midnight Suns, moving twice to position himself between the cube fragment closest to him and also one of the Infinity Formulas. He paid 1 power to pick up the cube fragment and is just sitting in contesting range of the formula. He rolled a hit for his multiple personalities, which would just mean if he didn't attack he would have got 2 extra dice. It would have been perfect turn 2, but in turn 1 nobody in range to attack. And it's the classic like for like activations in round 1. Omega Red activated first for Criminal Syndicate. He only moves small. He did so twice to position himself, as you can see him threatening Moon Knight in the next turn, and just paying 1 power to pick up the cube fragment closest to him, and stopping within range 1 to secure the Infinity Formula on his side. He's not got Moon Knight within range 2 though, so no poison. Down this end of the table for the next activation for Midnight Suns, Blade moved up his medium, paid 1 power, picked up the cube fragment, and he was on this side so he could get both. For his other movement action, he positioned himself just a little bit further away, just to make it more difficult for MODOK to potentially get a shot, or the Wrecking Crew, because they don't have wall climbers, so they'd have to go around the truck that's in their way. So just positioning himself such that it'd be awkward for them to try and get an attack. And speaking of MODOK, he decided to test that theory, activating next for Criminal Syndicate. He also moves small. That's kind of like their downside. They've all got massive bases, but they're all small moving. I think only Abomination isn't. Anyway, moved up, paid 1 power, picked up the cube fragment that he's actually sitting on, or would have been sitting on. He is holding the Infinity Formula. He's got range 4 on his Doomsday Chair arsenal, but that is not good enough to reach Blade. Now he does have an action left, but he's not going to move further forwards because that puts him in punching range of the Immortal Hulk, who's just out of line of sight here. So he's just going to hang back and try and get the Hulk to come towards him. Well, T'Challa decided it was time to try and swing the points in their favour by going after that cube in the middle of the table. 2 medium moves positioned where you can see he was just within range 1, paid his 1 power and has picked it up, and that obviously puts him in the threat range of the other monster on the table, right over there, who might activate now, or it could be the Wrecking Crew. Let's see. So Abomination was the one out of those two that activated. He moved medium as previously stated. He did so to get roughly into the direct centre of the table there. Now he's outside of range 2, so he couldn't do his basic strike, which is 7 dice. But what he can do is his range 3 hurl debris. It's only 5 dice, but it's free. He's chucking a bit of rebar at T'Challa. T'Challa has stealth, so had to be within 3 to see him. And he managed to do 2 damage with it, which is pretty okay. It generates 1 flat power for him, regardless of whether it does damage or not, and he gets 1 extra power in the power phase, so now he's sitting on 3. He could technically try and pick up some scenery and chuck it, but he's holding on to that power to do his big gamma bomb next turn. So then it was over to the final activation of round 1 for the Midnight Suns, and it was Immortal Hulk, and he didn't have his best kind of turn because you want him smashing something every turn, but in turn 1 he is playing somewhat tactically and wanting more power generation, so he only moves small, so he moved a movement and a half more or less to stay within range 1 of that Infinity Formula there to generate himself 1 extra power along with the 3 he gets per turn. That means he's going to be rocking 7 minimum at the top of turn 2, and it could be more if the Wrecking Crew actually land a hit on him. So that puts him in a really good position to do his Gamma Burst, or just start chucking things like the bigger parts of the terrain, or whatever. So he's setting himself up for a strong turn 2 by being a little bit more reserved now. And it is over to the Wrecking Crew to take us to the end of the round. So the Wrecking Crew activate, last one of the turn. They only move small, and they moved small, which put them where you can see them right kind of obscured by MODOK there. And it did actually put Immortal Hulk in range of 1 of their attacks. Now ideally they want to be close to someone when they start their activation so they can combo their abilities, because then their abilities do other stuff. But such as it is, only their flinging the magic crowbar beam 4 was their only option, and it's 4 dice Mystic versus Hulk's 5 Mystic defense, because Immortal Hulk doesn't care about Mystic for whatever reason, I guess because he's magic himself. But the Wrecking Crew's initial roll was really good, and the aim affiliation bonus from MODOK kicked in. If you roll at least 1 wild, you can change one of your other dice to either a hit or a block. So they had 5 damage coming in off of a 4 dice attack, and on his 5 Mystic defense, Hulk was only able to block 2, so he took 3 damage. He should consider himself lucky though that it wasn't part of a combo of attacks from the Wrecking Crew, because if they'd previously hit him with a secondary attack prior to that one, he would have been staggered. 3 damage is still a lot, considering it's a 4 dice attack, but it does also mean Immortal Hulk's going to have 9 power at the top of turn 2, so something's going to happen with that. At the end of round 1, here are how the points stand. Let's go with the Midnight Suns first. They have 3 of the cube fragments. Everyone except Immortal Hulk is holding 1. Those 3 characters, Moon Knight, T'Challa, Blade, are all taking 1 damage and gaining 1 power off of the back of that, and also gaining 3 victory points. They also hold 2 of the Infinity Formulas. Blade and Immortal Hulk are holding this one. Moon Knight's holding the one up there. That's 2 more, taking them to 5 victory points. Also in the power phase, that does mean everyone contesting one of these Infinity Formulas is gaining 1 extra power, so there's power out the wazoo everywhere. And for the Criminal Syndicate, they have the other 2 cube fragments, 1 on Omega Red, 1 on MODOK. They'll each be taking 1 damage and getting 1 extra power. And they hold the other 2 Infinity Formulas. So they're only trailing by 1. 5 plays 4, Midnight Suns favour, and Midnight Suns are also retaining first activation. With that, let's go give everybody a massive bunch of power and see them use it in turn 2. Round 2 got started with Immortal Hulk springing into action for the Midnight Suns with 10 power. He started by using 1 below all. He doesn't have an immortal token, so it's only the second part that matters, but he paid 2 to use it. If he doesn't have an immortality token, you can place within 2 of your current position. That got him right smack dab there, because he wanted to go to work on MODOK. On that note, he did his Gamma Burst. It's a single target, it's 10 dice for 5 power, I think it was. MODOK, very smartly, immediately decided to use, what is it called? Science demands sacrifice, your sacrifice to be precise, for 2 power, selecting the Wrecking Crew as the target instead. That means they get thrown, not MODOK, as part of the attack action, and MODOK fully dodged them. They're only size 2, he's size 3, it would have been much better the other way around, but he did his bodyguard thing. The Wrecking Crew, they got hurt pretty bad there, they got 5 damage off of that, but that's enough that they were still standing. They had 1 health left. Also, they don't generate power off of the Gamma Burst, just because that's how it works for Hulk. The target doesn't generate power off the damage. So he had to do his basic strike to finish them off. It's 7 dice, it was worth it to deny an activation, and he got 2 damage off of that, where he needed to do 1. So, sort of new model syndrome, I guess, because the Wrecking Crew are not getting an activation this round. But MODOK managed to stay on his feet, technically unharmed besides the damage he took from holding one of the cube fragments. He did spend 2 of his 3 power though to protect himself. First up for the Criminal Syndicate was Abomination, who also had a bunch of power to play with, and he started by spending 4 of it on his big spender Gamma Bomb. It's 8 dice, range 3. He targeted T'Challa. You get placed within 1 after it's resolved, and it also does guaranteed poison. The latter is important because he did do 3 damage with it, which is enough that T'Challa is dazed, so that's an activation denied as well. Abomination paid 1 power to pick up the cube fragment that T'Challa had been holding. For his other action, he just did a small move to get in contesting range of the the Infinity Formula rather, that Moon Knight is holding, so now it's currently a draw. Had to turn him a bit weirdly because he's got that kind of issue that Malekith's tiger's wings have, where that little sign that's poking out is a bit annoying for positioning because it pokes out quite far from the base of his base. So it's a little thing, but that's why he's facing in a silly direction. Gonna need a slightly pulled out view for this. Blade activated for the Midnight Suns. He moved medium, he then spent 1 on Bump of the Night to move himself forwards at 1, which is where you can see him, and then he used Siege of Darkness, so Midnight Sun characters can pay 2 power to do a 0 cost attack. He paid, Hulk paid, and Moon Knight paid. Didn't really get good value out of it, sadly. Blade whiffed entirely against MODOK, thinking, oh, he's got no one to bodyguard, it'll be easy. Hulk's rolling 7 dice for a basic free attack. That did 1 damage, so not great there. On the other end of the table though, Moon Knight, just with his basic 4 dice into Abomination, hopefully that's visible there, he actually managed to do 3 damage to Abomination, but it gets reduced down to 2 because of his gamma mutated hide. Omega Red activated and used 2 activations, or rather 2 movement actions, to get round with Abomination there to cap that Infinity Formula back there, ending within 2 of Moon Knight, so Moon Knight is now poisoned but not able to get an attack off this round. And with that it's over to him, yeah, because T'Challa's dazed. So Moon Knight rolled for his personality. He got a wild, which does the same as a hit, so 2 extra dice on his first attack. So he threw 6 dice into Abomination, and again you can't quite see the damage, but he did 2 damage reduced down to 1, which, you know, he's slowly chipping away at him, I suppose. Then he made use of Wall Crawler and just medium moved or backflipped over the car there to where you can see him. So he ran away from the Infinity Formula he was holding and is now holding the one on the enemy side. He is still poisoned, but oh well. Last activation of round 2, and MODOK just went to town on poor Blade. I wish Blade was better than he is. Anyway, he started with Doomsday Chair Arsenal and managed to do 3 damage to Blade right there. Then he wanted to try and secure the daze, used Psionic Assault, 4 power, and that's a mystic attack with a forced advance small beforehand, so that's why Blade is now down there. And he did use, what, 2 power I think it was on Supernatural Reflexes to give him some rerolls on his 4 mystic defense. Wasn't good enough, took 4 from Psionic Assault. He was just trying for anything there. So that dazed him, he dropped his cube fragment. MODOK has no power left, however, so he couldn't pick it up. So it has, and plus he threw him away, or moved him away. So it's just been dropped on the floor and will be scored by no one. And that takes us to scoring for round 2. At the end of round 2, that went much worse for the Midnight Suns. Their Siege of Darkness did not do enough to justify its use. Immortal Hulk didn't do that great with a couple of 7 dice basic attacks either, once during his activation and once from Siege of Darkness. So not great for them there, and that is reflected in their point gain. They scored 1 from Moon Knight still having a cube fragment and 1 from Moon Knight still holding one of the Infinity Formulas. So Moon Knight's also taking 1 damage, but he's getting a couple of extra power from the other stuff he's doing. And the Criminal Syndicate, they've got 3 of the cube fragments. Omega Red, MODOK already had 1, and Abomination. They're all taking 1 damage and getting extra power. And they hold 2 of the Infinity Formulas because Immortal Hulk is not within contesting range where he's standing. So it's just MODOK holding that one, that's why he got rid of Blade. And Omega Red and Abomination have the one at the top left of your screen. So Midnight Suns went up to 7, but Criminal Syndicate has now changed from a 1-point deficit to a 2-point lead on 9. So 9 playing 7, Criminal Syndicate's favour. Midnight Suns still have first activation though, and hopefully Immortal Hulk will have a better turn this time around. Let's see what happens. Turn 3 got started with Immortal Hulk feeling a lot more like how I remember Immortal Hulk being. Started by using Gamma Drain on MODOK. Should have used it in turn 1. Did he forget it was free? Maybe. This is you put a token on an enemy's active or reactive superpower, and anytime they use it you gain power equal to what they spend. Put it on MODOK's science requires sacrifice, your sacrifice, whatever it's called, his bodyguard. And as it turns out, it was not required. So he did a basic punch into MODOK. MODOK decided to take it to the face, given that the Wrecking Crew are on their day's side. And MODOK took 3 from that, which was pretty good. But also, he got a wild, rather Immortal Hulk got a wild. So got a throw, chucked him into the Wrecking Crew. The 1 flat damage from that throw dazed MODOK. He dropped a Q fragment, Immortal Hulk picked it up. And the Wrecking Crew took 3 damage from MODOK's giant behind being flung into them. So keep in mind, Immortal Hulk was still over here at this point. He did another basic strike for his other actual action into the Wrecking Crew and did really well with it. It spiked, it did 4 damage, and we won't be seeing the Wrecking Crew doing anything because Hulk just took out all 4 of them. And they are off the table. And with the power he generated off of that second punch, he spent 3 of it on Gamma Leap to get placed where you can see him here. He paid 1 power to pick up the Q fragment that Blade had dropped, which means he's now holding 2, and he's the only one holding that objective too because MODOK is dazed. So that's more like how Immortal Hulk's supposed to feel. Oh, the tables have turned a little bit on Criminal Syndicate as Omega Red activated. He moved to where you can see him. He was going after T'Challa to try and remove T'Challa off the table to kind of even up the sides, make it 3-a-side again. He spent 4 power on Red Terror, which is 7 dice. He can choose whether it's physical or energy. It's got Absorb Essence on it. None of that matters because his roll of 7 dice had 1 success in it, and it was just a bog standard hit, which T'Challa easily blocked. Now, did forget he ended within 2 of him, however, so that poison is still proccing, which does matter because Abomination can make use of that. But in terms of activation, that's real bad. Well, the Scaredy Cat did a disappearing act activating, and T'Challa just ran away. He ran 2 medium moves down here. Now, he's not holding a cube fragment, but he is at least holding an Infinity Formula. He passively generating 1 VP might make a difference, so he didn't just want to get removed by Abomination. Abomination could absolutely still chase him and chuck debris at him, but that isn't necessarily a one-shot, so it's his best chance for living. Abomination kicked off a little bit for the Criminal Syndicate next. He paid 3 for I'm the Strongest There Is, or whatever his equivalent of that is called. Yep, that's it. It's a long throw for scenery size 4 or less. He picked up the car, the white one that was there, chucked it at Moon Knight, and managed to do a single point of damage to him. Not great. So then he spent 4 on Gamma Bomb, range 3, which Moon Knight was within. 8 dice, it's got a throw and a wild. You get placed within 1 after using it. And if you deal damage, it does the poison condition. That doesn't really matter. None of that matters because he absolutely just destroyed Moon Knight with 7 damage. So Moon Knight is dazed. He did get placed within 1. Then for his other actual action, he moved back to where you can see him because he wants to hold that Infinity Formula. He paid 1 to pick up the Infinity Formula that Moon Knight was holding, if I didn't say that already. And yeah, he's not getting an activation. Just turned him into a smear on the floor, so he's dazed, which means Blade is the last one to activate for the round, because MODOK's also dazed. Well, having recovered from being dazed last round, Blade activated and he just moved up the table as best he could. It was a medium move, paid 1 power for bumping the Knight, and that got him right there. So he is a threat to the top end of the table, isn't doing anything else, and that takes us to scoring. So then around 3, Criminal Syndicate are still ahead. They have 3 of the cube fragments, 2 on Abomination, 1 on Omega Red. Abomination's actually getting kinda close to getting dazed. He's only got 7 health. He's not quite, he doesn't work in the same way as Hulk does. so he does have a dazed side. So that's him up to 4, that's him up to 6. Yeah, he's got 1 health left. So he's in trouble, but they're getting first activation in round 4. So he'll get to do something, most likely. But he is in danger of dropping those cube fragments. Still, he's holding 2 of them now. That means he's getting a lot of power as well. Omega Red's holding the other one. He's up to 3 damage. And they're holding one of the Infinity Formulas. So that takes them up to 13 of the 16 required to win. The Midnight Suns have 2 cube fragments on Immortal Hulk. That's him up to 5 damage in total on himself. And they also hold the 2 closest to camera Infinity Formulas. So they've caught up, kind of. They're on 11. It's going to be much harder for them to hit the 16 required to win. A lot easier for the survivors of the Criminal Syndicate, but still definitely all to play for both sides. As we go into round 4, Criminal Syndicate going first. So as we begin round 4, Abomination activated, of course, because he is dangerously close to being dazed and dropping 2 cube fragments. And he went to town on Mr. Knight, who you can't even see because his big butt's in the way. He started by doing another Gamma Burst. That's how he managed to move over to where you can see him, and that did 3 damage to Moon Knight. He then just did his basic 7 dice strike into him. That did 4. So Moon Knight is out of there, at least until Khonshu revives him. And Abomination is ending his turn there. I think we can probably turn him to face camera because he looks much cooler that way. All side on. He is holding that objective, but he has got 1 health left, so even Blade should hopefully be able to do something now. So Blade took a bit of a chance there. He moved up medium, he paid 1 for bumping the Knight and got him within contesting range of that Infinity Formula. Then he just did his basic Katana attack, 5 dice Mystic. Abomination's only got 3 Mystic defense. He did have enough power to potentially pay for like Night of the Vampire or whatever it's called, but he needed power left over, guaranteed, to pick up the cube fragments that the Abomination would drop as long as he did 1 damage. Well, luck was in his favour, because he did precisely 1 damage. That's not 2 damage reduced down to 1, that is exactly 1 damage. So Abomination is dazed. Forgot the daze counter for him. There it is. He dropped the 2 cube fragments. Blade picked them up, and he still has enough power that he could do supernatural reflexes, because he's going to need to defend himself against Omega Red most likely. And that could be the turning point. I forgot to mention during Blade's turn, he specifically stayed out of range 3 of Omega Red, so Omega Red would have to use up an action to get towards him. I keep forgetting Omega Red, he's so slow. So he had to move to get into range with that small movement. And then he spent on Red Terror to just try and go all in on Blade, and he almost did it. He managed to do 5 damage with it, and he can convert like 1 success to a negative, to a skull with Absorb Essence, so that happened. And Blade managed to stay on his feet just. Now you might be thinking, why not do Death Spores or whatever it's called for Omega Red? The target has to already be poisoned, and Blade was not poisoned. So although he ended within 2 of him, and he is now poisoned, it specifically says at the end of Omega Red's activation, so he can no longer do, what is the ability called? Death Factor? That's the one. Yeah, Death Factor, which would have done enough damage to then daze Blade. So he's hanging on. MODOK could definitely get up there if he's willing to. He might have to if that's the difference between winning and losing. Life comes at you fast sometimes, especially if it's a giant, massive green muscle. Hulk activated, and he's done Gamma Burst as his first action, his 10 dice into MODOK, who has nobody to pass it off to. He also paid 2 for Bats the Ghost Hound, which lets you change 1 result to any other during an attack or a defense roll. He changed up Skull to a crit. And did 6 damage to MODOK. MODOK on his flip side has 5 health. So no need to even use a second activation. MODOK is out of there. Hulk still has an action left, but he obviously can't get up the table to do anything. So he might as well just accidentally knock over a lamppost and smash the Infinity Formula. It does look like he's just going to leap at them and smash it. And there's no activations left for Criminal Syndicate thanks to Abomination being dazed, so he already activated anyway. T'Challa is left. T'Challa is just camping that point there for a victory point. I don't know if that's enough for them to win now. We're going to have to go to the points and see. At the end of round 4, that is the end of the game. The Midnight Suns have managed to swing it enough in their favour, thanks to the dice going in their direction that round for sure. They have 4 of the cube fragments, 2 on Blade, 2 on Immortal Hulk. Blade would then, in the cleanup phase, yeah, cleanup phase after scoring. So he would start the next round flipped, or off the table rather, because he would die. But that doesn't matter, that's 4 victory points gained from there. They also hold 3 of the Infinity Formulas. 2 down here, and Blade is actually the only one holding the one at the top right. So that took them to 18, I believe, 2 above what they needed. Criminal Syndicate, they still have 1 Q fragment on a Mega Red, so they got up to 14. If a Mega Red had sat on one of those home objectives, it would have taken them to 15. Still not enough to get to the 16, but, you know, kind of close, 1 away. And all in all, a very close match. I'll be back in a second with some final thoughts. So we had 2 giant green monsters on the table, and they never once engaged with each other, because it's always so tempting for characters as strong as these 2 are to go after the squishies and just absolutely turn them into paste on the floor. And that's what happened. Abomination, as I say, he is not super tanky. He's only got 7 health on his healthy side. He doesn't quite work like Hulk does, so in a straight up fight, Hulk probably is going to take it, but especially Immortal Hulk. But he's still very scary and impressive, and I still want to try him in a Hydra list at some point with Strucker. Some Wrecking Crew we didn't really get to see, unfortunately. It's MODOK's fault. It's MODOK's fault that we didn't get to see the Wrecking Crew do anything except throw a magic crowbar once. Forgot how bad a Mega Red is. This helped remind me of that. Forgot how lackluster Blade is, and this also reminded me of that. T'Challa, he didn't get to do much because Abomination picked on him. So that's about it, really. I think that's all I've got to say. I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you did, please do remember to show your support. Even just liking, commenting, etc. all helps for free. Or if you can spare it, you can go above and beyond and consider becoming a channel member or pressing the thanks button. Channel members get access to this series early, along with some other videos as well. Or you can check out the channel sponsor via the affiliate link in the description box below. If you buy anything from them, and they do carry this game, I get compensated if you've done it through that link. Either way, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the future. I think next time we're going to try and get Mephisto on the table and see how he works. Until then, ta-ta for now.